in terms of today, I'm going to lead the first session around high-level stakeholder priorities. We really want to check in with you. We're conscious that our operating environment has shifted a great deal just over the last 12 months alone. So we want to check back in with you around whether we've got the right priorities. And then we're going to get deep into a couple of key topics. The first is essentially how we're helping our stakeholders to get to net zero. So how we're transitioning to DSO services, how we're working on our future energy scenarios and working with local authorities around their energy plans. And then after a break, we'll come back and essentially tell you how we ourselves are getting ourselves to net zero. And Andy will give a presentation around our environmental action plan. So hopefully you're at the right session. Hopefully that's what you're expecting. And yeah, we would love your participation today around those topics. So flipping on to the next slide, by way of introduction, I'm Alex Wilkes. I'm WPD's Head of External Affairs. And as I say, delighted that you've joined us today. For those of you that are relatively new to WPD, we maintain the electricity network that takes power from the transmission system and delivers it through to 8 million homes and businesses that are connected to our network. We serve around 25% of Great Britain. We're the biggest distribution company. And we operate a smart dynamic system. So whilst traditionally it's sort of that one-way power flow from centralized generation through to the end customer, you'll see at the bottom of that graphic, increasingly we've got lots of distributed generation feeding power directly onto our system. So what all that means, moving to the next slide, is that we do 5 crucial tasks, the first 3 of which are all focused on us providing a reliable supply of energy that we know you depend on for your daily lives. We usually, we've historically referred to, we keep the lights on. Well, yes, we do, but increasingly we keep the Wi-Fi on. We keep lives ticking over by maintaining equipment and fixing the network whenever there's an issue. The fourth one on there is, and increasingly a huge focus for us, is around connecting customers. That is new homes and new businesses as they're built, of course, but increasingly that is around connecting huge volumes of projected low carbon technologies, things like electric vehicles and heat pumps coming onto the system. And then on the fifth one, all of that, leads us to be operating a smart system, managing two-way energy flows, using things like flexibility services to make sure that we maximize the efficiency of the current grid and we unlock as much capacity as we can before we then install new assets onto the network. So we do all of this recognizing that we have a huge responsibility to the people we serve. We are crystal clear, we exist for our customers. That is the whole reason we're here. All of our money comes from our customers. Therefore, it's absolutely vital that we act responsibly. I'm not going to step you through all of these, but we have values on that sort of DNA diagram around keeping people safe, focusing on our customers, recognizing the environmental sustainability responsibilities we have, making sure we have a diverse workforce, for example. It's absolutely vital that we are a responsible business, recognizing we serve local communities, and therefore making sure the electricity grid is fit for future generations, that bit in purple, power for life today, but power for future generations. And above all else, right now, we are particularly conscious of the challenges facing customers due to spiraling costs of energy and other parts of the electricity bill. So when I give you an overview of our business plan, the key thing there is that we are proposing to keep our charges broadly flat in real terms, so at under 30 pence a day. Based on the current price capped energy bill, we're now around about 8 to 9% of an electricity bill. So the other thing to quickly update you on as well, which will be new since some of you have engaged with us before, is that we're very soon going to have a new name. So we're now part of the National Grid Group. That means that in September, we will be known just as National Grid. But for us, the key message is it's the same people, it's the same contacts, processes, it's the same commitment to operating the network safely, reliably, and delivering great customer service. But we'll be doing all of that under a different name. We'll also love to continue to engage with you specifically about the distribution system. And what this is actually really exciting about being part of a bigger group is that we were already turbocharging the route to net zero, and this is going to really enhance that further. We've got a shared commitment as the National Grid, focusing on transmission, distribution, all parts of this system in the UK, to make sure we help our stakeholders get to net zero. really driving the sustainability agenda, which is obviously a key focus for us today. So in December, we submitted a highly efficient, ambitious business plan that outlined our proposals to spend £6.7 billion on the network to make sure, I laboured on it earlier, to make sure the network's ready for future generations. We are incredibly grateful at the phenomenal turnout we get from our stakeholders at all of these events, and today being a lovely example. We engaged over 25,000 people as part of that process. What that translates into is 42 core commitments that really reflect the needs, priorities, and the wants of our stakeholders. So we're really confident it's a very good plan that reflects what you wanted from it. Next week is a major milestone. So we get Ofgem's draft determination next week on the 29th. And I wanted to flag that we will therefore be getting in touch with you in the wake of that. We'll probably write out to you in the first couple of weeks to give you a bit of an overview about what the key headlines are, flagging up your opportunity to feed back to us, but also to feed directly through to Ofgem. And then in September specifically, we'll have stakeholder events to really unpick the impacts of the draft determination. We're really confident we've put out a plan which is very strong and reflects, had huge amounts of acceptability. If Ofgem make cuts to that, or we think make decisions which are potentially going to delay the route to net zero in particular, we will be flagging that and seeking your input to sort of see if we have your support around potentially some pushback and negotiation with Ofgem as part of that process. So turning to today, the first workshop, as I mentioned, I will lead through in a moment around priorities. We're very, very conscious that the world we work in and the communities we serve have differing challenges, even from 12 months ago when we were sort of coming to the tail end of our engagement for the business plan. But we also want to provide an opportunity to get into some key strategies, as I say, around essentially how we're helping you as stakeholders get to net zero and how we ourselves are getting there. Around our business carbon footprint and enhancing biodiversity and so forth. But the first thing is to touch on your high level priorities and what you expect from WPD, because it's very, very important to us that we are delivering for you, for our customers. So to that end, I'll quickly hand you over to my colleague, James, because he will introduce something called Slido.com. We want to do a quick exercise before I walk you through some of the stakeholder priorities we've heard over the last few years of engagement. We want to give you an opportunity to start from a blank sheet of paper and tell us almost the top 3 reasons you're with us today, top 3 things you want from WPD. So I'll just hand you over to James to do that exercise, and then I'll be back in a few moments.
Thank you so much, Alex. So hi, I'm James from EQ. My role and the role of my colleagues today is to chair the discussions and also take notes of your comments. We'll be recording them anonymously, so please do speak freely and candidly throughout. We're also going to be asking you to vote on certain things, and we're going to be using this thing called Slido. You can either, in order to get onto Slido, you can either hover your phone over and please get on quick because I don't just want to look at the word obsolete there for the whole time. In order to get onto Slido, either hover over the QR code and it will take you straight there, or type the word Slido into Google, or just add slido.com into your web browser, and then you'll be asked to enter a code. Doesn't matter if it's uppercase or lowercase, but please enter WPD 2022 and then hit the blue arrow. That will get you into Slido, and you should see this screen appear on your phone, your tablet, or another tab on your computer. I can see we've got lots of people who are already one step ahead, and they've been asked, what are the 3 biggest challenges currently facing WPD and the wider industry? So 3 words. I can see the big front and center. We've got capacity, we've got net zero, affordability, and the word cloud is based on how many people are typing those words. So clearly decarbonisation, net zero, etc. is a big priority for people. I can see LCT up, I can see grid capacity, LCT uptake, network limitations, new technology. So we'll give you a moment. So slido.com, and you should see this screen appear on your phone or your tablet. And then please type 3 words that you think are the biggest challenges currently facing WPD and the wider industry. Give that a second. I can see we've got 41 people who have entered their 3 words already. Hopefully that will give us an indication of how many people we've got voting And later on in the workshop, we'll be running through some more votes. Unsurprisingly, net zero and affordability are coming out on top at the moment. I'll give that a moment or two. Got 47 people, but we've currently got 6 participants still typing. Onshore wind permissions, fuel poverty, renewables, right front and centre, seemingly affordability and net zero. I'll just let those 2 participants finish typing and then I'll hand back to Alex. That's great. Thank you very much. I'm going to hand back to you now, Alex.
Amazing. Thank you, James. And don't worry, anybody that was saying, "Oh, you know, I noticed that I think Alison just made a comment, I can't get through on the password." Don't worry at all. That to some extent was just a bit of, I suppose, a bit of a fun exercise. But what demonstrates to me is we're not going to be short of things to talk about today, which is absolutely brilliant. And actually, the whole point of this next session is that we want you to raise those topics. Anything that I'm going to give you a quick, and it will be really whistle-stop tour of some of the foundation stones that sat beneath our business plan. Some of the priorities the last time we did that exercise came to the fore as sort of the top 12 things. But we want to understand how those have changed and what's missing and what needs to be added or what needs a different focus on it now. So you're going to have loads of opportunity. This is absolutely not straitjacketing you into anything. This is to give you just an overview of where we got to previously. So, and I think that word cloud's a wonderful place. We're going to have loads to talk about, as I say. So, yes, we engage thousands of stakeholders every year, as I mentioned, and therefore, what I would say is, having done it for many, many years, we can definitely anticipate some key priority areas, but we're absolutely driven never to assume. We are very conscious there's been some huge shifts just in the last 12 months alone. So today is an opportunity to explore those unconstrained. But to get the ball rolling, I wanted to play back to you what we heard last time, and therefore how some of that has fed into our business plan. But as I say, if you're sat there going, I think something big's missing, that's the whole point of the 20 minutes or so we're going to spend in our groups in a moment. So if we move on to the next slide, what I will do is, these are quite busy slides. I'm clearly not going to go through them all in great detail. There will be a good opportunity in the breakouts to get into these slides in a bit more detail and revisit anything that you feel I skipped over a little too quickly. But I just wanted to touch on each of the core commitments and say a couple of sentences that give you an overview of what we mean by that topic. So the first one being the network resilience and reliability. So, and then on the purple boxes, you can see some of the things that we can do to address that and that stakeholders have told us are top priorities. Things like tackling the frequency that power cuts happen, but also when they happen, the duration of those. Increasingly take steps to mitigate against severe weather and the impacts of storms. So resilience tree cutting, make sure branches aren't near to overhead lines, flood protections on our substations. Things like that have always historically, in the 12 years or so I've been doing this, have come out as really top priorities for stakeholders. Second on that sort of graphic is around cyber and cyber security. That's both in terms of protecting the network from the risk of dodgy folks trying to cause issues on the network, but also protecting data. But as you'll see, other things in there around having incident recovery plans, working with the other utilities and sharing best practice across the sector to make sure that we sort of protect ourselves against the risk of cyber attacks. Moving on to the next sort of priorities, you see there a huge focus for us is safety. What we do it carries inherent safety risks, and that's something which is front and center in everybody's mind at WPD. So that is, of course, those spanning our staff, our customers, and also how we engage with the general public on the topic of safety and keeping everyone fit and healthy. Next on the list, fourth on sort of the running order, is workforce resilience. So ensuring we have the skills and staff numbers in place, particularly so that we can deliver a smart network. The nature of what we do is changing significantly from how we used to run a network just 10 years ago. Therefore, that includes things like how we attract and retain talent and diversify the skill base of our staff, how we promote STEM, so science, technology, engineering, maths, how we get people into those topics within schools, and how we enhance the diversity and inclusivity of our workforce, for example. Fifth, that we've heard loud and clear, is the role of innovation and digitalization, to really utilize those things to drive efficiency in everything we do. And in the light purple box, again, there are some good examples of how we're doing that in greater detail around, enhancing the way we can operate the network more flexibly, how we can come up to new efficient services, how we can facilitate low carbon technologies onto the grid. So next on the list, if you're keeping pace with me here, but hopefully it's good, just gives you a flavour by what I mean by a single or couple of word headline. The next couple of words are community energy. Again, that's around how we are helping locally owned and controlled schemes to connect to the network and help them to drive decarbonisation within their local communities. Next on the list, we did a whole session yesterday specifically on connections, is how we are helping folks to get onto the grid. And that encompasses key factors such as speed of the connections process, clarity of information we provide, ease of the processes of sort of interacting with us, as well as better forecasting, introducing online tools, things like that. And very closely related on that list then is low carbon technologies. So I alluded to earlier, we're expecting huge increases in terms of electric vehicles, heat pumps, and some, in some cases, solar across our region over the next few years. In relation to EVs alone, you just look at those purple boxes. The things that stakeholders have told us is we need to focus on the speed of charging, providing advice and guidance for how to get connected to the grid, having accessible charging solutions both at home and on the go, for example. Next up is, and huge focus today, and again, thank you so much. I think at last count, let's have a look, over 107 folks in the room today. That is absolutely brilliant. Hopefully we can really hone in on some of the topics of environment and sustainability later. We know we've got a huge responsibility there. Loads of steps to reduce our own carbon footprint. You can see that in terms of our fleet emissions, plastic use, waste to landfill, but also how we then not only mitigate damaging impact, but we actually have a positive impact. So around the sites that we operate, we enhance biodiversity. Next on the list, we have seen this rise significantly in priority ratings with stakeholders, is to operate a smart and flexible network. And again, that'll be another part of today's discussions. That's how we can unlock capacity to enable the widespread adoption of those low carbon technologies and local renewable generation. Seeing some of those topics flash up on the word cloud tells me we've got loads of folks that want to touch on that topic today. And as part of this, it's really important that we take a whole systems approach, working with other sectors to deliver the most efficient solutions for our customers, not always our default being to invest just on the network. We need to work with others to work out what's best for local communities. And last two, the first one, double bill, is vulnerability and fuel poverty. That includes a huge amount of programs we've got to support customers during power cuts that might struggle and need us priority assistance, as well as establishing referral networks and working with a wide range of partners, both to enhance our services and to enhance our understanding of those that need support and coming up with solutions that match that. Giving an example on our fuel poverty program, last year alone, we supported over nearly 26,000 customers to save over £16 million. So we can have a huge influence and force for good in that area. And then finally, but by no means least, 14th in the running order, but not 14th in the priority state, is we have, 12th, we have to focus on great customer service when we're delivering all of the priorities that I whipped you through today. That's in terms of great communication, having quality information, and also having a range of communication and access channels when you need to interact with us. So those are sort of the 12 that we've been working on for quite a long time. But as I mentioned, the title says an evolving operational landscape. Well, boy, oh boy, have things shifted enormously in the last 12 months. As a few examples on the slide there, the number of storms, major severe weather incidents, in our case, one of the worst incident we've ever dealt with in terms of storms on our network in our history was earlier this year. through to we're conscious huge cost of living crises and challenges facing our customers. The war in Ukraine even, impacting energy costs, potentially impacting energy security. So we're aware that's the environment we're working on in. And therefore, my final slide, my final couple of comments is that we now want to move on. If you can just flick me on, James or Vince, thanks so much. This next session is then to unpick how have your priorities changed. We want to know if those 12 are still relevant, but if they are, if your priorities and your focus areas have shifted a little bit, but also what's missing from that list. And what we'll do is we'll have that conversation, and then right at the end of today, we will revisit that and we'll add in some of your new suggestions